Good afternoon and welcome to Klingspor's Woodworking Shop 20th Annual Woodworking Extravaganza.
This is the virtual edition.
And this is the last one of our virtual days. Today
It
is,
ain't so.
I'm sorry to say it is. Today is the last day to get on sales and promos and everything we have going on. And especially today with King Arthur tools being 10% off, no better person to demonstrate how those tools are used than Miss Ellen Smith.
Hey guys.
How are we doing today?
Good today. I'm ready to carve.
Awesome. Well, we will let you say a little bit about yourself. I mean, people are probably wondering, you know, if they haven't known about you yet, who you are, what you do, how you got involved in power carving with King Arthur, and we'll let you take it away.
Yeah, so I am Ellen Smith, and I live up in Bowling Green, Ohio. My company is Little Bear Furniture, and so all my social media channels are Little Bear, but it's B-A-R-E, so Little Bear Furniture. And I have been power carving for a decade. I started when I was in art school. I have a bachelor's degree in fine arts with an emphasis in sculpture, but I went the more functional route with that and make pretty much exclusively furniture. And I started carving with King Arthur tools back in late 2009. Wow. And so I bought a Holy Galahad because I was carving a Sapelli chair. It was a laminated Sapelli chair. It weighed like 8 million pounds. And I needed something that could really tackle from that point on fell in love. And so I've been using King Arthur tools since. Still carve with the Holy Galahad, still carve a lot of end grain. But from there, I really kind of I credit a lot of my start to King Arthur tools because when I graduated school, I moved up to Ohio and I had my son, and I had no way I thought I had no way to work and how to keep creating because I didn't have the full wood shop that I had in school. And so I did have a jigsaw and an angle grinder and out of laminated plywood, and I carved it with a King Arthur disc, and then I posted about it, and then I got some orders for that chair, and then from that point on my business just really grew. And because of that one disc on that angle grinder, I realized I could keep making, and now I've grown my shop and definitely grown my King Arthur tools. The next thing I got from them, I bought this Guinevere sanding system almost 7 years ago and I needed something to sand, and it was the perfect thing. And from there I've just continued to expand on their tool line and how I can benefit from all of their tools and their versatility.
Well, awesome.
But I'll be showing off the Holy Galahad a lot today. I'm going to make a lot of dust. Also the sanding system, and then I use the Merlins a lot also. So another thing that I feel like I didn't know about for a long time from King Arthur are these flat wheels. So I'll be showing you because after you do the rough carving, these make the next step to sanding so much easier. Yeah.
Well, perfect.
So I guess I can get started here. I've got a plywood chair here glued up. And with this, when I start a chair like this, I'm not like the cleanest laminator, so I get to do a lot of that removal, and that's kind of my favorite part. I get to really hog out on this, really get a feel for the shape that I want to create. So for this, whenever I start, I use the extreme disc on the Galahad, and it's gonna get loud. I'm seeing a mess. So with the Extreme, I actually use the Extreme the most for the tool, but I can remove as much or little material as I want, but it can really take it off really quickly. And just, it allows so much motion, and that removal where you can see where, you know, when I'm moving this way with it, I was really able to remove a lot of material depending on the amount of pressure that I was putting. But then when I was doing the curve, I can have that much lighter touch to really get the shape that I'm looking for. And it's one of the reasons that this disc in particular I use time when I'm working on a piece, because I'm able to do that removal to make surface level and then move to the shaping, but I can do all of it without having to change out my tool. So that's one of my favorite things about this one. So this seat here has a pair, and so this is this guy. They're going to be little chair friends. They're going to be the same size. This seat started out with the same dimensions as this one, and I've already done most of the bottom still rough, but I've done the rest of the mass removal and really just kind of I'm letting both the process of carving and the wood kind of decide what it's going to end up looking like in the end. I'm going for more of like an upholstered look, which I get a lot. I've heard a lot of people say that when I finish a plywood chair, it looks like it's this upholstered cushion. So I'm hoping to be able to accomplish the same thing with the walnut version of the same chair. So we'll see. I hope it works out. But I'm going to switch out to this one so I can talk about the Holy Galahad. So if you guys have any questions while I'm switching that out, we can do that.
All right, sounds good. We don't have any questions as of yet, but Paula Stimson has said that you are very talented and you have a nice setup.
Oh, well, that's very sweet. Yeah, power carving is my best form of therapy. I can't, if I'm ever really grouchy, I'm just like, I need to go carve. And I'll just come out here and do that. And it's really, I think that's more of the sculpture side of my furniture, is that it's like a paintbrush for me. Like I get to really feel through the whole process.
So on average, how long does it take you to do one of these chair seats from, glue up all the way to fully sculpted?
So I think the thing that takes the longest, honestly, is cutting everything out. I don't have a CNC. I have a CNC, but not one big enough to cut out chair seats. That's longer. Like the cutting and gluing takes longer than the carving if I buckle down. So this chair started as a plywood one did, and I did this in probably 45 minutes. Like I got to this level. And that's pretty typical. If I worked a whole day, I mean, I did. I went to, I got to demo down in Greenville, South Carolina, and I started and I sent the chair down in several pieces, but glued it up and finished it by the end of Saturday afternoon. So and that was with lots of breaks. But I think that the process of getting ready to carve is what takes the longest. So
Okay, and then we have a question from Jerry Meesemer.
I'm going to now.
Oh, I'm sorry. After the first initial rough out, what is next disc? So what disc would you use next after the extreme?
That is a perfect segue. So what I would use next is the medium or the coarse. This is the medium. And I like this one because my next step is finding the line and then the rounding of the corners. So for me, I mean, yes, I can feel across the surface and I can feel like there's a high spot here and there and everywhere. But one of the best things about the less aggressive discs is you can feel that as you're carving and you can see it. So as I'm moving this back, I can feel, because I know the amount of pressure I'm putting on the material, I can feel that high spot without having to stop and put my hand there. And the less aggressive disc really allows that process to happen, because you don't want to make the high spot a low spot. And so another way, though, that I can see that is I can see the tool path. So if I pull back like this, there's going to be, if it's all one height, there's going to be a consistent line. Like the width of the line won't change. But if I pull back like this and there's a narrow spot, that's going to be a high one. And if there's a low, it's going to be a little bit wider. And so this is the last step of wanting tool marks. Like I want to be able to view the tool mark so I know my shape. Like what, let me get my mask on, but what I am going to do right now is I'm going to look for those high spots, be able to smooth them out. And then I also use this for more of the rounding, because with the extreme, you can do it. But if you have, like, for instance, especially with walnut, if there's a sapwood spot with that extreme, it's going to eat that right away instead of, the harder, denser part of the wood. So with a less aggressive disc, I'm able to control the rounding a little bit better and find those high spots. So I'm going to show you now what I mean by that. So as I was saying earlier, as I'm moving that back and forth really gently, I can feel those the dips and those high spots, and I'm able to get that. And I mean, but it's a step in the right direction, because sanding out high spots without an angle grinder is almost impossible, and it takes forever. So as I was saying too, I can take those edges off and I can start to round them. And I wanted to stop before I got too much into it to talk about when I'm rounding an edge, I'm in constant motion in different directions after the initial like swipe to take away that edge. And so, you know, I'm going to move my grinder over and back and forth and all around to create that soft shape and have, you know, these rough spots. I mean, there's still going to be planes that you can see where the rounding is starting, but it takes that initial edge off, and then you're able to really start to form a soft edge. And you can create a more like an angle if you want, but I enjoy like the soft curve. And like I said, my goal here is to make it look semi-upholstered. So I'm going to keep rounding this back edge so there's a little bit, so you can see that a little more. And I've not done the high spots and low work on this corner and this back edge. So as you can kind of see with the profile now, I've gotten it softer and rounder, and really I'm now ready in this little section to move to the flap wheel. So I'm going to switch out these discs really quick and unplug it first. And then talk about the flap wheel that the iGreen King Arthur.
So a real quick question for you. Does the extreme pair out in grain? Do I need to approach in grain differently?
I don't think so. I think the extreme really, it does. I have not had much tear out problem with plywood. It's more likely if I grab like a void. But I don't have any problem. And also, if you go much lower than the extreme, you're going to get some burning depending on the type of wood. Like I did a Purple Heart chair, and I had to use the extreme because otherwise I was getting a lot of those burn marks because it's such a. But no, I think that the extreme it's what I use for all of my end grain without much tear out problem, except for plywood.
So, as a reminder, King Arthur tools are 10% off during the Woodworking Extravaganza. You can visit woodworkingshop.com or call us at 800 228 0000.
So this is the coarsest flap wheel that they have. 24 grit, so it's basically gravel, but it does a good job really getting that smooth surface started, just kind of revealing the rest of those high spots and helping move along to the next step of sanding. And you can still do a lot of shaping So if I decided right now to be a different shape, I can do that with this particular flat wheel. Oh, plug it in. So now with this, like you can see the softer profile there. And then I would, once the whole thing were around it, I'd move up to the less aggressive flat wheel to do some more smoothing, get really that final shape that I can get with the angle grinder. And then one of the sanders. But first I'm going to show you how I'm going to address. So the seam here where the back and seat meet, I don't want to get in there too much with the full size angle grinder because I don't want to dig in. I don't want to make this, too abrupt. But with the plywood, I cut those. I cut that soft curve. With the walnut one, I have to make that. And so I'm going to use the Merlin 2, which it's small and mighty. I remember when I first got it, I was like, oh my gosh, it's like American Girl doll size, which it is. It's very light and very small, but it's definitely really powerful. And the little carbide discs are perfect for this kind of spot. So So I've really gotten that curve started, and I'm able to get, in there to make that curve, but also feather out so that the lines are going to continue with the actual seat. And then another one of my favorite parts of the Merlin is that it has a million attachments, but the sanding, this flat sanding disc. So you can really see the contour. It's freezing here, so the foam's a little warm, but it really will, it'll go in and really grab that and smooth that out. But also from King Arthur, the sanding system has the flex shaft, and that would be where I would go next. I'm gonna have to air this up. But yeah, so if anybody has any questions at this point, or do you want to talk about any
Well, we do. We have two.
in particular that
One is there a suggested beginner's list of equipment? Would be great.
Okay. That's a good one. So beginner's list, I would start with the medium grit, Holy Galahad. This is the flat one. I like the curved one. I would suggest that because you can make a flat surface with it, but you can also do the curve. This is a little more difficult to create that concave situation as a beginner. Then I would, angle grinder wise, I think that's one of the most important parts of all of this. I started with the least expensive angle grinder I could find, but I have switched to the fine angle grinders, and I like this kind of the safety in the paddle switch. And so that's what I would suggest carving, starting there. And then really the flap wheel makes a lot of sense for me as a beginner because it is that next step to sanding. And I know that before I started using them, spent a lot of time, unnecessary time with an orbital sander, trying to get through that. The Guinevere, though, I think it should be on every woodworker's Christmas list because it goes way beyond carving. I mean, I use it on with like a sanding mop. I'll put the sanding mop, right in there, and out all of my blocks for Christmas time, all of the little things I can just hold on the sander and do that. So I think that even if you're not a power carver, I think the Guinevere is top notch. I'm having a difficult time in the cold weather getting anything to hold air, but
And Jerry, the Extreme disc is sold separately. There isn't a package necessarily of the discs, but it is the Holy Galahad. It'll be the purple color disc. Now, is it recommended to use only the hand pump with the Guinevere pump drums?
Yes, I think. I mean, that's all I've ever used. I also aired all these up last night, and it's a lot colder out here than it is in my shop. So I'm having they're gonna ship. So with the flex shaft, you can really get into this curve. You can move. I normally have this screwed down to my workbench. Definitely recommend that. But you're really able to soften it. It does go conform to the shape you're making, but it also removes enough material that you can really get a nice soft surface. And then this is the vacuum attachment. I do use it inside. I also love the vacuum attachment because it kind of creates more of a handle for me when I'm trying to reach further. On this chair, I can reach from both sides, but I got a love seat out of plywood, and having this to where I could really move it deeper into that seat was great. So because I still have a lot more carving to do, it's not as smooth as it could be, but you really can get that soft edge there with this Guinevere. And then same with Merlin, with that same constant motion that I was talking about for these outside edges. You kind of have to maintain that here too. So you can see here on this edge, I am really starting to achieve that. It was like, if you could feel it too, you'd notice where the seat and the back meet. So really, I could go start to finish, and probably will, with all just King Arthur tools. So I'm going to switch now, though, talking about this other piece that I have here. I call it, I think it looks like it has a rash, the surface of the table. But this is where the Guinevere is literally going to save me hours, because I carved this texture. Eventually, the texture will be all over. Cutsall Extreme Sphere Burr with my die grinder. But this, to get these tool marks out, I would probably have to hand sand. But there's two different ways I've been doing it. You can see in this corner, it's really started. Let me move it to the sun. It started to smooth out a lot. And then over here, I still have a lot of tool marks going on there. So there's two different ways that I can do it with the trial and error just in the Guinevere. And one is the tiny little sanding bulb, this little cutie, and the little pads that fit. Nice. And this has been, I think, the most successful way I'm doing it, because I'm not mean, the round little indentions that are on here aren't being kind of erased by, you know, if I were sanding it with something round. Oh, not running it. There are two sides to the sander that both rotate, but this is the only side that can spin the flex shaft directionally. So with this, I can get into this texture that I've already made, and I can just make it, take out those tool marks, but also go a little bit deeper. And this is Baltic birch plywood, and I want that, the look where the lighter interior plies is popping through. And it really, this really allows that, those marks from the burr. But another way I can do this would be with using a sanding mop or sanding star, however you want to call it. And so just, you know, something like this right back in here. And I use these in all sorts of ways. I mean, on my, like, into the actual bench sander, but also you can use it on this surface as well, and really smooth that out. So with that, it doesn't necessarily get into all of the holes, but it is smoothing out the rest of the surface. And I'll take this out and kind of, so you can see more of this here with both the burrs and with the Guinevere. And so I have a lot more carving and sanding to do on this one, but I think that the look that I'm going for is going to happen without a ton of hand sanding. So that's always a plus. But another way that I use the Merlin is, I want to move back to that, is with, if I'm cleaning up glue, like an edge where the joint needs to be true, or I need to clean up, anything like that. The Merlin really is great for that with one of the sanding pads on it, because it's powerful enough to remove it quickly, but you can also really control how much is removed. So with this, I've got like this seam here, you can really see that the glue's there. I don't want the edge this sharp, and I want the transitions to be a little more smooth. So right now I have that sanding pad on. I've got 180 on it because it is pretty, you know, weight, and I don't need to remove a lot of material. So in just that amount of time, I've got that seams completely cleaned up, and I started rounding it. And so I think that that's one of my favorite things about this line of tools is that you use in so many different ways and on so many different pieces. And that's really important to me because one of my main kind of goals as a woodworker is to not waste anything. And so, this planter is all out of scraps. I don't waste anything. And so, I can carve a chair, but I can also carve this little planter into this like topographical map look, and that's using the Merlin. So I think that that's something that I really appreciate about the quality and the versatility in all of these tools. So yeah. I think I'm gonna get back. I'm gonna switch back to carving that plywood chair and really kind of hog out on it for a little bit. But I want, as I'm switching to that, if there's any questions or if you guys have anything that you want to point out or have me point out, that'd be great.
So I have one question, and that is on the Guinevere, you have two of those chucks, and you said one side works good for the hand pump. What's the other side for?
So that's a great question. And so the flex shaft does only go into one side, but what I do, especially at I'm like in a production, I'll put in different size mops or grit of mop. So I can have my more aggressive, like if I'm rounding a baby toy, I'll have 100 on this side, and then I'll go up to a higher, like 180 on that. And you can really see, let me put this mop in. What is so the drums and the bulbs do work in these. You can use them for essentially like what a spindle sander would do. You can put your work up to it. But as I was saying, these are great. To work in the space. It's going to be a while. So here I've got, my seam mop, and then these also a King Arthur product. They're scuff and buffs. So they're an abrasive that is similar to the Star, where it kind of polishes. This is less aggressive, but there are more coarse sizes that do remove those tool marks, but maintain the shape the softer shape that you want. So it's not. What I'm going to do, so this planter here, I can really get in here. I can also work on the outside. Safety first. I'm going to clamp it down just so I don't break it. But I can do that outside edge there, but I can also work the inside. I can use it. I can edges. And I can go, with this too. And with this, I can get that polished edge. But the nice thing about having, with them in the actual stand, have both hands to hold your piece, to move it around and over it. And like I said, I do this with little blocks that I have in my hand, and I'm able to really control the work and get the sanding done. Again, not having to hand sand, which is my life goal. So I am going to switch back to curving. So I think that definitely made my point clear, that I'm really passionate about power carving, that it's one of my ways of kind of escaping, and I think that I'm really fortunate to have that as my means of work. And so when it comes to carving, I kind of escape into this world. Like, I don't need the world around me, because I'm in that zone, and I'm carving, and I'm able to create what, like my angle grinder is like an extension of my hand. It is my paintbrush. It is what I use to make a vision come to life. And I know that there are simpler ways to do these things. Like, I could cut my laminations and line them up perfectly, but for me, part of the process is this like mass removal, this hogging out of material and really shaping from something raw. So I'm thinking I'm gonna carve for a bit and really give a timeline of how quickly the transformation from messy glue up to this. Are there any questions before I get started?
Yeah. Well, I know a lot of people that might be interested in this, but maybe they're so used to doing things by hand, they might even be intimidated by the fact that all this is power tools and power carving, right, and very aggressive. What tips would you give them, or suggestions for people who might be overwhelmed by the thought of all this power?
Get to know your tool. I think that's very important, to know the way how to control it, to not be afraid of its power, but to also respect its power, and maintain that knowledge of the direction that the disc is spinning, so that you don't get it to snap back on you. Really just get to know and practice on something that you don't care if you mess it up. Practice on something soft, so you know that the way that the tool in your hands get you the pressure that you need to apply to remove a lot or a little. And like any power tool, or you have to respect it, you have to be safe. I get a lot of comments to wear gloves. Don't wear gloves if it gets stuck in I suggest not to wear gloves, because you could get it stuck in your disc. No, always keep the guard on. It is easy to find an excuse to take it off, but keep it on. But also know that once you get used to it, once you use it, once you practice with it, you're gonna the intimidation will dissipate. Does that answer that question?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you.
I know a lot of people that might be coming over from sort of a metal maybe side of things that are used to having to wear gloves because of the heat from the sparks. Wood doesn't generate quite the same way, and it may not be coming off quite at the same velocity. So, I can see where sort of eliminating gloves from the mix might be a good idea. But I noticed you are always wearing your safety gear as far as your mask and your glasses, and probably at some point you've even got face shields on when you're doing normal work.
Definitely, because it does. It creates a lot of dust. Like, I dream of ways to collect that from an angle grinder, and they make options, but they're not really, at this point, it hasn't been developed to where it's not going to get away and not become this cumbersome block on what you can do with the tool. And so, yeah, safety gear, a mask, shields. One of the reasons I like the carbide disc over other types of discs on an angle grinder is that it doesn't shoot off like the needles that other forms of power carving would do shoot off. Because like I feel like it is just dust. It's not that like sharp splintery hitting into you. But at the same time, it's dust and you don't want to breathe it. So,
yeah, that's good. I mean, I was just trying to think of things that, might keep people from even attempting some of this, and that, because you make it look so easy. And it's just like we had Izzy on earlier. He makes things look so easy with the way his mind works and the way you're doing your sculpting. Some people have that talent.
I think that is, and I think that I think everybody should power carve, right? Like, I think that it's, my neighbor's leaf blowing, that it's something that everyone should do. That's just because I am that enthusiastic and excited, and I've been doing it for so long that it comes natural to me. But I remember being, I was 20 years old, and I'm like, okay, cool. I guess maybe I was fearless too. I was like invincible still then, but I remember not putting, I'm like, oh, I'm fine. I don't need my mask. I'm outside. No, you do. And I remember that needing to respect the tool and the disc and just the process of, and I've done, I mean, believe me, I have made a ton of mistakes. I've gone too deep in a cut. Like a chair similar to this, I had dowels that ran through it, and I carved straight into the dowel. And I mean, that's something I can't take back or do, but it was definitely a learning experience. And so while I make it look easy, it's not always been easy, and it's still not necessarily. I continue to try to find ways to challenge myself to learn more about power carving, to keep power carving, and to inspire other people to power carve. Because like I said, I'm like, everybody should do it. It's so great.
Right. Makes sense.
So where are you up to next? You're going to be doing more on the chair itself, and are you still using the medium disc?
So no, so this is the one, this plywood chair here. This is the first one I showed that I just really, it's fresh out of clamps, like have not really worked on at all. So I'm going to I have the extreme on, and I'm going to go, for a bit so that I can give you a good timeline on how long it takes to remove and to start getting that shape.
All right. Sounds great. And just to let you know, we are 55 minutes in. So however long you want, 55 minutes, we're coming up on an hour.
Okay. So I'll carve for just a few more minutes then. So that,
okay.
To give this,
you don't have to stop what you're doing, but I just wanted to let you know where we were at.
Okay, great.
And just as a reminder, King Arthur tools are 10% off through the rest of today. So if you're interested in anything that Ellen has shown us today, please stop by woodworkingshop.com and check out King Arthur tools.
Whew.
So about 5 minutes, you knocked that out.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so it the seat is nearly, I mean, I would unclay this, but yeah, the seat is getting to that point where I can start really shaping it. Obviously, next I'll take off these edges, make them smooth like the other chair, and then just kind of go from there. So it is. It's probably another 30 minutes of rough carving, and then I can really move to getting that shape.
Awesome. Very good. Yeah, you've had some bicyclers, people walking dogs, FedEx trucks, all kinds of fun stuff in the background.
I know my kids just walked by, so I'm like, hey, yeah, my neighborhood definitely knows me because of what I do. Hopefully, they aren't too annoyed by the sounds.
Yeah, I was gonna say the leaf blower guy has nothing on an angle grinder.
No, not at all. So, and they're used to. I mean, my neighbor is he's a woodworker, and so his shop is right up against mine, and so he always knows when I'm working because he can hear something cut on. Is familiar
cool.
with sounds.
Well, I appreciate you joining us today. Did you want to keep carving?
Sorry, what?
Did you want to keep carving, or did you want to stop here? This is up to you.
I think I'm at a pretty good stopping point where, if anybody has any questions or if you guys have anything else to say or for me to cover, but I definitely do love power carving and love King Arthur tools.
Very cool. Well, we appreciate you for coming out and being able to join us here on a Saturday. It's, not the top notch spot, but at the same time, it's great content.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it's been a lot of fun, and I'm happy to share what I do.
And keep in mind too, if there's any questions on anyone who's seeing this after the fact, leave your comments, and if we can't answer them, we'll certainly reach out and we'll get a direct answer from her and get back to you.
Yes, that sounds great.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us for our virtual woodworking extravaganza. Remember, this is Ellen from Little Bear Furniture.
So go over there and follow her on Instagram, and I'm sure all of your other social media accounts, and go follow her journey, and maybe you can learn a few more things from her side.
Yes, that'd be great.
All right. Well, once again, thank you very much. I hope everyone has a great rest of the day, and we will see you next time.
Thanks.